15 minutes. Same rules as always. If you're not familiar, the quick version is 15 minutes total, 3 minutes per person. Please tell me your name and your town when you come up to speak. And please address all comments to the chair. Okay, if anybody's got something, go ahead. And Mark, you'll probably have to slide the thing up on the back, the on-off switch on the back of the mic, slide it up, and then wait like 5 seconds before it actually works.
Thank you guys for letting us speak tonight. Mark Dumont, Donna Drive, Pembroke, New Hampshire. I just wanted to highlight the differences between the schools within the SAU that don't have a mask mandate versus Pembroke. So first, Allenstown Elementary School, 5 cases. Pembroke Hill School, our elementary school, 14 cases, so more than double with mask mandate. So one school's all wearing masks, the other school's mostly not wearing masks. Then Armin DuPont School, 7 cases for Allenstown. Three Rivers School, 17 cases. Again, more than double. They're doing much better than us without the mask mandate, guys. Now, I remember at the end of last year's school year, you guys said you wanted to get the kids back to normal as much as possible. Well, we have Allenstown showing us that we don't need the mask mandate. Let's get these kids back to normal. Let's get these masks off the kids. If someone wants to wear a mask, it's fine. Let's encourage them to wear the N95s. I think at this point, most people realize that these masks are not doing nothing, especially for Omicron. 60 times more transmissible. Hospital rates are dropping rapidly in New Hampshire too. So let's get these kids back to normal. They can see each other's faces. The teachers can see their faces, and they'll see the teachers' faces. This isn't healthy to have the kids wearing these masks. You guys yourself said last year you wanted the kids back to normal as much as possible. Well, Allenstown showed us that we can take masks off. So I expect you guys to vote tonight and take the masks off. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have comment tonight?
Carrie Dean, Melissa Drive. Thank you for having us have a chance to speak tonight. I just want to go on the record as pointing out that we have a lot of school board members who are not attending, and I just would like to know if maybe there's going to be some action taken in the event that this continues to happen where certain school board members are just not showing up. I mean, I think it is a commitment, and you know that there's 2 seats this year that are up for re-election. I noticed there's a lot of new faces in the audience tonight. I know some of them have their name on the ballot. I personally will go on the record. I have my name on the ballot. I do every chance I can because I do want to be on the school board. But I think it needs to be brought up, the commitment, and if you cannot fulfill your commitment, then you need to resign. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Amber White, 935 Burr Road. While I do not have children in the Pembroke School District, I am a licensed speech language pathologist, and the mask mandate is affecting our children's ability to understand our receptive language and expressive language that is very, very important whenever they're in school. In order to catch the information that is needed from their teachers, they need to be able to see their teacher's face. In order to fully understand the message that is being taught to them, you have to see their whole face. It's not just the words that are being said, it is the emotion that is put behind the message. Kids need to understand what that is. Otherwise, you get those kids who don't understand how to read people's faces. And that is a very, very important skill to have. Think of the kids who are deaf or hard of hearing. They rely on lip reading. How can they read their teachers or their peers' faces or their lips if they cannot? So please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we will move right along. Agenda review, Patty, do you have anything you need to add? Oh. Did not realize that. Okay. Board members, anything that you forgot on the agenda? All right, I will add something, just an announcement between 4 and 5, after we take care of minutes before we get into board reports. The announcement, but other than that, I think we're good to move forward. So with that, we've got minutes from January 4th and January 18th. We okay taking those together, or do we have corrections? Okay. I'll accept the motion on either. Discussion?
Motion to approve January 4 minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, discussion on the minutes of January 4. All right, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of January 4th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, there is a motion to consider January 18th.
I'll motion to approve January 18th minutes.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, conversation, discussion, corrections on January 18th. All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of January 18th, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstentions?
Amy abstains.
You? All right, so let's take care. Okay. So, as I said, there is an announcement. Last week, after our last meeting, the board was informed, by Ms. Bond that she was potentially, making a move. And today I received an email from her that she asked me to share. So, trying to bring it up. Okay, so Tuesday, February 1st, 12:34 p.m. Hello, please accept my resignation from the Pembroke School Board effective immediately. I do not believe the current school board has the best interest in the Pembroke residents and the Pembroke children. 2022-2023 Pembroke school budget shows a large decline in revenue. Instead of cutting expenses, the burden is placed on Pembroke taxpayers to pay higher taxes. Also, currently, there is no evidence that children wearing masks in school setting is keeping them from getting COVID, but Pembroke School Board still has a mask mandate in force. Sincerely, Ann Bond. So with that, we're going to have another opening on our board. Obviously, this is a little bit awkward, being that we're a couple of weeks, a month away from election. So Patty and I have reached out to our attorney to make sure that we understand how this works. We were given the RSA to look at, and the way that the RSA reads, and I can give you the number in case anybody cares. All right, let's find it. So the relevant RSA is 671:33, and what that provides is that any resignation after the date that the filing period begins, which was, I don't know, 13, 14 days ago, is treated as a vacancy for appointment for next year's election. So we only have one more meeting between now and the election, so obviously we don't have time to do that. Probably makes more sense if there's going to be potentially a new board in place in a couple of weeks anyway, or a couple of meetings anyway, that they're the ones that choose it anyhow. So it looks like one of the first orders of business of the new board after the election on the 8th of March will be to appoint a new member to fill Ms. Bond's spot for the remainder of her term, which is to March of 2023. That will follow the same process as the last time. So there will be a week or whatever it was that will announce that you can apply, letters of interest that we'll have at a meeting, sort of interviews, sort of like we did last time, and then we'll appoint somebody. So anyway, that's out there. With tonight's agenda. Agenda item number 5 is board reports. I don't see Braden with us tonight, and so I don't think we have Josh either, right? All right. Please.
I received the facilities report from Mr. Coughlin this afternoon. And he says as follows: the facilities crew has been hard at work managing snow cleanup. An average storm for the crew involves clearing, removing, and treating all entranceways and sidewalks, clearing curb edges and corner parking spaces, opening up fire hydrants, and anything else that might come up within a particular storm. Our crew certainly takes pride with their snow management, and it shows. Our wood chip plant recently had its biennial tune-up conducted by our contractor, Messier Smith. This tune-up is per EPA. All went well. Fun fact about our wood chip plant: we have burned 456,067 tons of wood chips since the start of the heating season. The new pasture window at the hill has been installed, or that must be 456.67, sorry, tons. The new pasture window at the hill has been installed in King on Crete. This will allow for greater security to the main office while keeping the general public within the vestibule. The crew recently assisted Pace Career Academy with the removal of their remaining electronics. We will store these items until we orchestrate a pickup with our recycling vendor. There was roughly a pallet's worth of items. And that's it for now. Please let me know if you need anything else.
Fantastic. Any questions for Patty to take back to Josh? All right. There hasn't been an SAU exec board meeting. We did have an AREA meeting, and pretty much the only topic that was on the agenda was interest from AREA schools in opening up the AREA agreement. There's kind of a formal process. It's almost a pre-process to the process. And I guess the best way to summarize the conversation is, ultimately to make changes to that document, the process and the changes have to be voted on by each town at their meeting individually, and all have to pass to make any changes. So Allenstown was kind of the driver of the conversation, but they wanted to see what the interest was from the other schools in making those changes and formally going down that process to kind of find out what the buy-in was with the idea that if the other towns didn't have a shared interest, then the likelihood that anything would pass would be fairly low, being that all the towns would have to approve to make changes. I would say that the commitment from the other districts was lukewarm at best. Some of them cited budget reasons, because they would have to set aside some extra attorney fees because this process would necessitate that each district retain its own attorney to go through this process. And some of them were afraid that that amount added to their budgets would make their budget not pass. Others kind of, I guess, just simply didn't see the point or agree with the end goal. So anyway, for now it has been tabled, and I don't think there's any currently planned action to move forward with that. And there really wasn't any other topic of conversation at that meeting. Next is budget committee. That's me too. So we've been working hard. It's been a good, productive, pleasant budget cycle. The MBC was appreciative of the amount of information that we provided, some of the summary documents that we provided. And we did vote on all the town and school warrant articles at our last MBC meeting. All of the MBC ultimately supported all of the school district articles. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about that. The big thing there is the public hearing on both the town and the school budget is this Thursday evening in the auditorium at 7 p.m. So anybody that has interest in budget, how the budget process works, and what the conclusions are from both the school board and the MBC should plan to attend that and ask some questions. Am I forgetting anything on budget, Gene? Okay, so that brings us to the principal's report. So let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Let's start with Dr. Morris.
Okay, good evening. I can share that Braden is a member of the varsity boys basketball team, and they have a game right now, so that's where he is. Where their game's about to start shortly. All right, so semester 2 began last week. Semester 1 grades were finalized and were distributed to parents via Alma yesterday. The teacher workshop day on Monday the 24th worked out very well for us, being that it was in between those 2 semesters, and it allowed for teachers and students to coordinate for recovery of assessment, and, some time for makeup work, and that worked out very well, and also for grading. It's a really challenging time of year for departments that are primarily semester-long classes. Those are generally your life studies departments and your arts and tech. So when thinking about the calendar for next year, I would strongly advocate trying to have that date in January again, if possible. In addition to that, winter sports are entering the home stretch, and many teams are poised to make the tournament. Boys and girls basketball have high hopes to go far in the tournament in the coming weeks, as does hockey. I'm also pleased to announce that last month, Pembroke Academy submitted an application to be recognized for the 2022 High School of the Year, and we were invited to present to a selection committee next month. So it's actually next week. So we will present to them, and if everything goes well, they will have a site visit, and I will keep you updated on that. Regardless of the outcome, we're hopeful that any feedback we get will help us prepare for our NEASC accreditation, which will occur in 2 years. So, we're not duplicating a lot of work here, but we are hopeful that we can do well and also get some good feedback. Our commencement ceremony for the class of 2022 has been scheduled for Monday, June 6th at 5:30 at Delta Dental Stadium, home of the Fisher Cats, with a rain date the following night on Tuesday, June 7th. Just because of the idiosyncrasies of scheduling with the baseball stadium, most of the other rain dates were like 2 weeks removed from the original date. So we really wanted to try to keep it where it was in consecutive nights, to make it a lot easier for families and for our graduates. So again, that's Monday, June 7th. And that's all I have for Pembroke Academy.
Awesome. Questions for Dan? Yeah, excited about commencement. I think the Delta Dental's been awesome. I know the first year was kind of out of necessity, but it's run very well. Barbara does a great job. I'm excited about it. Thank you. All right, Mr. Marston.
Good evening. Feels like it's been a while. We had guests today at Three Rivers. We had the national report card. Folks came in and assessed about half of our 8th graders. It was about a 70-minute, I don't know where 70 minutes comes from, but it was a 70-minute test. We had, like I said, about half of the class, and that will show up on the national report card. I don't know when it comes out, but it's an annual thing. We've done it about every other year since I've been. And they volunteer us for it. Also, it started today with, we have another methods class from SNA2 come in, and they have I think 12 students that being mentored by 12 of our teachers in language arts and social studies. So that started today, and they come in weekly for about 2 or 3 hours. They sit in on one class, and then the professor goes over what they saw on methods that teachers are using. So it's a nice program to have in the building. I did want to give you a little quick update on the two trips, the Washington DC trip. There have been some guidelines. I think maybe you spoke a little bit about it at your last meeting when I wasn't here. Guidelines are set by they're not set by us, let's put it that way. And so part of it is the tour company has some pretty strict guidelines. The hotel has some pretty strict guidelines, and also DC has got some guidelines that are being played out. So we did put out a letter to families to let them know that these are the guidelines that have been given us, and to let folks think about it and make some decisions that work for them. Currently, before we put the letter out, we had about 72 on the trip. We're down to 44. So it's about half of our eighth grade class. So we're, at this point right now, we're trying to figure out, we didn't want people to lose money, to get into it and cancel it and lose money. Because it could be up to $850 per family. So right now, we're kind of brainstorming what that looks like and what we do with that. We all know we can't predict what April's going to look like. That's kind of where we're sitting right now. We're split right down the middle as far as how many kids going. The environmental camp, which is a very different scenario, is still up and running, and we're trying to go forward with that. I think the biggest difference not the difference, but the thing that I'm most concerned about is currently if somebody gets sick on the trip, they have to be picked up. When you're 2 hours away in environmental camp, that looks very different when you're 10 hours away in Washington, D.C. So those are, some of the things that we're wrestling with right now. Again, we can't predict what April's going to bring us. Wish we could, but so that's more just of an update. Our workshop day also went very well. I know I've spoken to you about STAR assessment a few times. We actually had staff writing reports and digging deeper into what those reports mean for where we are as a school and where classes are, and helps us to work our instruction. We also spent some time looking at the way we assess students and trying to, we gave them many examples of different types of assessments, and they were able to work together in groups and talk about how they're assessing so that we know students are getting the information that we're giving them. So I thought that went well. I mean, it is interesting, Dan brought up, they have, I think, different reasons for that mid-year, but mid-year is a nice time to capture where we're at. And if we have to redirect, we can redirect. And so that gives us the opportunity to really get some good conversations. We know students, et cetera, et cetera. That's our basketball program, both girls and boys are having great years, and we finish up this week, and we'll have both teams will be headed into the tournament next week. So stay tuned for more on that. I think that's all I have.
Cool. Questions for Mr. Moore? Sounds like you used some PD time to do an assessment of your assessments. Sorry.
That is actually correct.
Awesome. Ms. Gary.
Hello, I have to echo, it's been a while since we have a lot going on in the building. We have our kindergarten registration. We're getting ready to open up for next year, and the next week that's going to go out. And that's always like, February coming, so that's kind of exciting. We'll see that start to flow in, information start going out to families about that. We're also going to look at how we can, one of our goals this year is to see what we can do to reach out earlier to kindergarten parents, have information and get whatever we can to kind of get them into the fold a little with COVID and the meetings and things like that. That's a priority for us. Just kind of give everybody a jump start into this. So that's something that we're excited about doing. If you're ever able to and you walk our halls, in Four Corners, we have constant art installations that are being changed. Miss Murphy joined us this year, and it's changing all the time. It's absolutely amazing to see what the kiddos are doing. I just walked by one today, and if you just stop and you look at it, kindergartners and first graders doing these amazing projects. And a lot of times you'll see those happening on the Hill. If you ever see that posted on Facebook, that's been great, and the kids, they absolutely love it. One of their favorites. In our classrooms, there's a ton of writing going on. It's been great. Our third and fourth grade are working on research projects. So they're really focusing on that writer's workshop piece, which is great because it takes into account all their reading skills that they need to use and analyze to put into practice and writing, which is definitely just many skills that go into that whole process. And then in our younger grades, you'll see they're doing author studies, and they might show their thinking through different art or different pictures that they're doing as they start to become writers as well. So there's a big writing focus in the building. You can see that, and that's kind of what's on display right now. Another thing we're up to is completing our mid-year benchmarking. Like John said, mid-year is the time that it's difficult to do that. We'll have all of that finished up in the next couple of weeks, and then the second week of February, we'll sit down to review our data, look at that, and then we have lots of conversations around helping individual student needs as well as instructional implications, things that we can do in the classroom to help support students based on the growth or the progress that we see. And then on the teacher planning day as well, for us, we really use that time to work in teams. One of the things that we feel that we needed was that time to just sit down and that common planning and have conversations is very beneficial for us. So we spent a lot of time with that, and it was a great feeling across the board to have that time to sit with teams and to work with them. And I think that's pretty much about it.
Great. Any questions about Hill? Great, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Okay. All right, next agenda item number 6 is consent agenda. Looks like we've got one.
You do. You have one staff leave request, and if there are any questions or comments that we would need to take this up in non-public. If you consider it a straightforward request and you're ready for action, you can vote on it now. Otherwise, I would ask to move that to the bottom.
Anybody have questions, or are we ready to take action? Okay, I'll accept the motion then.
Leave request. I'll second it.
Right. We're not doing discussion, so all in favor of approving the leave request, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Looks like nothing for gifts and donations. Okay, so moving to immediate business. Our first thing is I guess presentation is the correct word. We've got Mr. Richard, I'll try it, Wengenrod. Awesome, from the Pembroke Energy Committee here tonight. So take it away. You can grab that mic. You can walk around with it if you want. You can stand there, whatever you want to do.
Brought some backup too, so. Hello, everyone. Richard Wengenroth with the Pembroke Energy Committee. I'm currently acting as the chair. We have a few printouts that we're going to hand out. We'll kind of step through it. Yeah. Anybody interested today? Yeah. All set? No. Oh, they're all set. Yeah. All right, so I apologize if my faxed anyone at any point. So thank you all for your time this evening. Once again, my name is Richard Wengenroth, current chair of the Pembroke Energy Committee. I have another member here with me tonight, Matt Miller. We just wanted to take this opportunity to give you all an update on what the Energy Committee is up to and talk specifically about community power, which is kind of an exciting new thing that we're looking into So in general, we're going to kind of read through the presentation that we handed out, but this is kind of an open discussion. So at any point in time, feel free to ask questions, type them, and we can kind of just follow the questions from there. So just a quick intro. Pembroke Energy Committee was active back in the day prior to me coming to town. And recently, within the past year, we've kind of all gotten back together and we pretty immediately saw community power and all agreed that this was going to be our immediate focus as kind of a project. So there's five total members on the committee, and we have a select board rep, Karen, who's with us here tonight as well. So on slide 3, just a quick overview. We're going to go through these bullets. We're going to try to get through it quickly though, so I'm going to skip through that. I'm actually going to turn over to Matt for going through some of these first slides here.
Sure how well you can hear me through the mask and everything. The first couple slides are really just to kind of give a little bit of an overview of some of the energy situation, electrical power costs in New Hampshire. The graphic on slide 4 shows how prices have changed over the past 10 years in all the states. And it's barely perceptible, but there are actually some black bars and some lighter colored bars. The black bars are states that have a highly regulated utility, essentially monopoly kind of utility arrangements. The light colored bars are the states that have deregulated. And so and New Hampshire is one of those. I think New Hampshire was about the first state that deregulated. However, New Hampshire does have the distinction of being the least competitive of all the deregulated states. So that's just a matter of how the rules are implemented and how the market evolves. For the most part, the deregulated states typically have the lowest increase of electric rates or even decrease of electric rates. The following slide, on slide 5, is also a graphic that just shows some data on electricity rate by state. And generally speaking, New England states are the most expensive. They're on the far left of that bar graph. That's the cost of electricity in cents per kilowatt hour. New Hampshire's among that, the top 5 or 6 states there. That was just a couple of graphics there. And then, Richard, I could even just say one word. There was a fairly elaborate market analysis done recently of the New Hampshire market. And it was kind of interesting because it showed that despite the fact that the state had been deregulated, for the most part, most people that buy electricity remain with the default utility provider, either Eversource, Unitil, whatever the other one, Liberty, or whatever the third one is called. And in fact, I think something around 85% of residents just continue to default electric supply, which is very limited in how the utilities are allowed to go to market. So that was just a couple thoughts there.
So if we skip ahead to slide 7, the big takeaway on this is just over the past 10 years, cost of energy has changed considerably with the introduction of some of the renewables. And then slide 8, this is basically looking at what it's going to take to decarbonize, whether we go with a high electrification scenario where we try to get all of our power from, or basically introduce electricity to replace fossil fuels in a lot of situations. And then the second graph on the right is a high fuel scenario. And basically the takeaway here is regardless of what avenue we take to decarbonize, it's going to result in a huge increase in electricity demand that we're going to have to meet somehow by increasing generating capacity. So slide 9 just kind of outlines kind of the key players as it is today. So you have the utilities, the Eversource, Unitil, Liberty. You do have the co-op, the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission. They're essentially the regulatory body, state. And the last bullet, which is why we're here today, something that's new and interesting for us, is the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, which is a nonprofit that just got organized the past year. I think they just formally,
October 1st.
October 1st, formally
We're incorporated.
incorporated. So essentially, slide 10, there's 3 new pieces of legislation that have kind of changed the energy landscape, or at least the procurement landscape for energy in New Hampshire. RSA 53E, House Bill 315, and Senate Bill 91. But all of these are essentially allowing for towns to go out and procure power half of their residents and businesses within their town for whatever motives they determine, whether it's to get better costs, better reliability, renewables, and all of that is kind of determined by the town. Kind of getting ahead of myself here a little bit, but basically these 3 pieces of legislation have enabled what is called community power, where towns can go out and procure power for their towns. So this was something that a lot of the members on the Energy Committee were kind of tracking for a while now, just due to personal interest or professional interest. And we now have the opportunity to generate a plan through the town of Pembroke where we get input from the town and our residents and figure out what is it that we care about in electricity that we're purchasing. Whether it be costs or resilience or proliferation. So some of the benefits of doing this are kind of laid out on slide 13. The biggest attraction for most people is that you have the opportunity to potentially lower your electricity bill. And we can kind of get into that in a little bit. It also allows an easier avenue for people who are interested in procuring their power through more renewable sources. So that's something that we can kind of bubble up as an interest as a part of this plan. And it just gives a lot more local control to where your power is coming from versus just buying through Eversource or Unitil. So slide 14 kind of lays out some of the rights and responsibilities to a customer. A lot of this will be laid out in the community power plan that we will develop as a town. This plan will be voted on at town meeting, so it doesn't get implemented unless the town is behind it. There is no cancellation if somebody decided to opt out of the new community power plan. And everything really does need to be in compliance with the RSA 53, the framework that kind of governs the community power. So slide 15, this is a kind of overview slide for the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. So there's a lot of text there, but essentially CPCNH is a collection of towns within the state who have decided to enter into a joint power agreement, basically the kind of loose contract with the Community Power Coalition in New Hampshire. I think I heard on the news today, it's now up to something like 24 towns in the state are considering community power. And this has all been possible by those 3 pieces of legislation that all passed, I think, within the past year.
Yeah, I mean, so there are 18 towns. 18, I can't hear myself. 18 towns have adopted this joint powers agreement, which allows towns to get access to the coalition's resources and to start going through the process of building their electric aggregation plan. There's another couple dozen that are seriously considering that. Pembroke, by the way, adopted the joint powers agreement, so we have access to that coalition. I'm one of the representatives on the member board representing Pembroke on that.
So if we skip to slide 17, this is a rough outline of the process for community power. So there's a few different avenues that you can take to do this. There's also broker services, companies that will basically go out and procure power for your town based on whatever priorities you outline for them. We did actually have a few of them in and kind of explored those as avenues. We decided to go with the Community Power Coalition New Hampshire because we have representation on the board. The board is made up of member communities who are part of the coalition. So that kind of was attractive to us. And a few of the other towns and people who are kind of running CPCNH are people who helped pioneer this legislation. So right now we have joined CPCNH. We have a JPA, the Joint Powers Agreement, that is signed, that was voted on October 20th by the Select Board. So the town is now a Community Power Coalition member. With that membership, we do get the board representation. We get access to essentially what all the other towns are doing around the state as they go down this community power journey. So we're basically in the planning stage now where we are trying to do outreach to the community, get people involved, understand people's priorities when it comes to power purchasing, so we can get our plan together. The hope of possibly next year's town meeting having something that will come up for vote. Once that plan gets voted on and approved by the town, it goes to the PUC. The PUC reviews it and hopefully approves it. Once that's approved, then CPCNH will essentially take all of the aggregation of the towns that they are representing and go to market and look to procure power based on the priorities outlined in each individual community's plan. And the CPCNH is basically the mechanism that will go out, identify producers of power, sign contracts with them, and they'll basically make sure that we have reliable power based on the types of power we're sourcing, whether it's fuels, fossil fuels, or a mix between the two. So I guess maybe now's a good time to stop for any questions. We kind of ran through this real quickly. We can definitely go back and hit anything in specific, in particular, if you have any questions.
Open it up to board member.
Jen, I understand, well, first of all, as a person who is member president, thank you guys so much for working on this. This is hugely awesome for the town of Pembroke. I'm very, very excited about this. Good job, awesome work. And I understand that one of the benefits is helping people along from, instead of just sitting there and paying the default rate, which is typically the most expensive rate, getting a much better bang for your buck in terms of a lower electric rate. What I'm not clear on is how the school, as a ratepayer, benefits. I mean, are they just like any other ratepayer in Pembroke? They also get the benefit of a lower rate? It's simple as that, or is there any more nuanced interplay?
It will, so there may be more nuance, but in principle, these community power programs serve all rate classes: commercial, industrial, retail, consumer, municipalities. I don't know what the school fits in. I don't know if it's a municipal organization or what, but in principle, it would be anything within, that's part of the town.
I guess I feel like that's something that, as the process evolves, that's something that would be helpful for the board to get more information on. Not that we need to be having these types of elaborate discussions all the time, but maybe one more stop before it would hit the town meeting in a year.
Yeah, well, so just to that point as well, one of the things that we're doing now is we're building this electric aggregation plan. I have a document, template's about a 50-page document. It has a lot of details of how the plan would work and how people enroll and disenroll, all that kind of stuff. We would love to have more than just the Energy Committee representing, contributing to that plan. So, for example, Saturday we had a little workshop. We had some other members besides the Energy Committee. It's great. Had a good discussion, but we take that input into the plan. If there's anybody that's related to the school or the school board or anybody would like to have more access to that plan and contribute, we welcome them, and we invite you, to participate in any way you can.
Other questions?
Can I ask a quick question? I agree with Amy. just going forward, if you could, how you're looking the school board to help with this, or what you think our plan would look like. That would be very beneficial going forward. But then I have a other question. I'm going through this and I can see where it says, there's some financial things for like low income and stuff. And just on a side note, like I have researched this on my own. I am Pembroke resident. And something to think about, I wouldn't be personally a huge fan of everybody in Pembroke is just automatically opted in. And the reason that I'd like to bring that out is when I researched this, I do have a child that has medical equipment in the house. I know I'm not the only one in this town that has a medical need. It's not an income need, but with the local power companies, there is a list of a medical list that says if you have like an ice storm and you're out for a week, which has happened, you are coded by your address, and they send teams to that area first before the rest of the town because there's oxygen or whatever's going on, or suction machine. If you choose one of these, every place that I've called, they cannot keep you on the medical list. So that is my concern going forward. I'm sure there's more families than mine that would affect.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the detail you're talking about, but unit of the failing utility, Eversource is still delivering the electric power. So I believe they would be the one that would be coming to your home and all that.
Right.
Second thing is that nobody can become exempt to any kind of Hampshire state statute and regulation, and these community power thing follows every single regulation and law. So if there's something that I'd like to learn more about it,
Yeah.
to make sure.
So basically it was explained that if you choose somebody else through a service provider, they don't have to offer that service provider and provide that information to Eversource. So sure, feel free. I can give you my email to reach out to me, but that would be sure affecting other families in our community too.
Yeah, we'll look into that and make sure that there's, I don't expect there to be. But to your main point, the enrollment mechanism is one of the main topics that we have to define as a town. Because I know there's a lot of, that's probably going to be the main thing that people think about is opting in versus opting out. And
So if I could just add one thing, and you brought up a really good point, and Matt kind of touched on it, but this is only related to the supply charge on your electricity bills. There's a supply charge and a distribution. Eversource, Unitil, they're the power distributors, so they own the substations, the poles, the transformers, and the wires. So if the power did go out, Eversource would still be restoring it regardless of what we do with community power. We're just changing the supply portion. But you will get billed the exact same way. You get a bill from Eversource, just on the supply rate. It'll say something to the effect of Pembroke Community Power instead of whatever generator their source would be using by default. So.
Other? So a couple. I guess the first, well, we answered one. It'll be a warrant article probably next year at this point. I guess. What is there something that we can do? What's the reason that you wanted to present to us tonight? I guess.
Yes. So great question. We do have some specific asks. The best thing is that we have another 10+ people here that are aware of the fact that Pembroke is going down the path of exploring community power. We've entered into an agreement with Community Power Coalition New Hampshire. Please spread the word. Our primary focus right now is working on the plan that Matt had referenced. Ideally, we'd like to stand up a committee within the town specific to community power, since it is going to be probably a 1-year concerted effort to get this kind of to town meeting. We have Matt, who's serving as our representative for the town to the the Community Power Coalition Board of Directors. Another member of the Energy Committee is also the alternate. We don't want to kind of suck in the whole Energy Committee to kind of chase this ball. We would really like to get more community involvement, some involvement from the school, some involvement from Town Hall, the office. So if anybody is interested or knows anybody who is interested in joining that committee, that is something we are actively trying to root for. There's no requirements, there's no qualities that we would really like other than being committed. We do want diverse views on generating this plan. So, you know, they don't have to be somebody who's really literate on energy markets or anything like that. Just somebody who's willing to put in an honest effort.
I can make an effort or make a suggestion. Have you guys talked with the folks at Associated Grocers at all? They have, you know, one of the largest rooftop solar arrays and they're located in Pembroke, and chances are they have some folks that are Pembroke residents who could be cajoled into joining the committee who might be interested.
Yeah, it's a great thought. We are going to, for other reasons, be reaching out to big power consumers in the town to get their input on this, because their support would be great. And having them as part of the aggregated power of Pembroke would give us a lot of punch. So, but that's a great thought, seeing if there's any residents. So,
Cool. So I guess, if you want to shoot me an email, I can send you kind of appropriate contacts. So if you have questions about the school, you know, Josh Coughlin's probably going to be the one that's going to give the most information about our electrical usage and needs. You know, somebody in Patty's office can discuss budgets and contracts if it ever gets to that point. But if you want to follow up with me directly, I can get you the right names and email addresses so that if you guys have questions, you at least have the right people to reach out to.
that would be awesome. Yeah, I can definitely do that. Thank you all for your time. I guess one last thing, just keep your eyes open. There's going to be quite a few events, workshops, and outreach that we're going to be doing to the town to try to get input, try to get people involved. So we just learned how to apply for posting on the sign out here on the corner. We're going to be doing the same thing on the center building. Well, so just keep your eyes peeled and spread the word.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, guys.
I'm just going to state my bias. I am biased in favor of community power, so just throwing that out there. But just so you guys know, this board is in the midst of maybe, I think, headed towards having its own Facebook page, which won't allow comments, but I really hope that we make the decision before next year's town meeting. And so it would beg the question, like, you know, would we post something like this there? You know, like, heard about Pembroke's Community Power Initiative at tonight's meeting. So just sort of throwing that out there.
Awesome. Anything else for us, guys?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. No, thanks for coming.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Okay, so our next agenda item 8B is our final draft of the warrant articles and some other documentation for the public hearing on Thursday night. Patty, you ever want to introduce?
Sure. So we do have the final draft was in your packet, but also this afternoon, you may have noticed Kathy added another folder. Amber's been working really hard to get some extra documents for our budget public hearing on Thursday, and she was able to get that done in time for the meeting so that you could have an advance copy. If you could just take a look, some of them are the typical handouts, the warrant and the MS forms, the tax impact sheet. But she was also able to get the budget summary, the revenue summary, and the warrant summary done. Last year, we gave that out at town meeting, which is usually March, but was in May last year. But she was able to get it done for the public hearing. So I was hoping you would be able to just take a quick look at that. And maybe not for Thursday night, obviously, but between now and before we have our March meeting, if there are things that you think can be improved, added, things that you think don't need to be on there, we would like that feedback. So that when the voters come in March, they have a document that helps them understand this incredibly lengthy line item budget that can be very difficult to decipher, even if you're versed in it. So those are all there for you, and we will probably be sharing those with the budget committee tomorrow and posting them on the website in advance for anyone that is able to attend on Thursday evening.
Yep, so if everybody can please take a look at those as soon as you can and let us know if there's anything that jumps out that you think is missing or wrong or could be changed for better. In addition, I think probably I made up a summary that I provided to the municipal budget committee that's kind of a high level overview. Basically big ticket items that change from year to year. So special ed increase, health insurance increase, teacher contract, things like that. And got a lot of positive feedback about that document, so I'm polishing the language and the formatting a little bit, and I'll get that to Amber and I'll send you guys a copy of that to look at as well. But I think it's a good snapshot of the high level look at it, to get a good idea of where we are. So, and then just for, I guess we'll go into the warrant just a little bit because, Amy wasn't here last time, so I wanted to clarify a little bit, some of the discussion from last time, so. I think the biggest changes were we modified the language of some of them. There was language in many of these, withdrawals from capital reserves that sort of specified what our intended purpose was. Jerry Fleury, who's on the budget committee and was trustee of those trust funds for many, many years, recommended that we take that language out. He was concerned that having that language in the article tied us to those very specific items, and that there was some redundancy because the definition of the trust fund specifies what we can use that money for anyway. There was some concern on this board that that would kind of bring down the level of transparency some. So as we did last year, we plan to have a supplement that's handed out at the town meeting to explain what our intended purpose for those dollars is. The other big change was we had discussion about number 3 and number 5 because they're both to withdraw money from the same trust fund. The 30,000 in number 3 is kind of like the bare bones, least we could get away with type of thing. And we didn't want to do that from surplus because Mr. Coughlin, I guess, for lack of a better term, sees that as not really optional. The 125,000, we didn't want to risk not getting anything. That 125,000 is still very important, and it funds most of the things on the capital improvement plan that we worked with the town on. So I certainly don't want it to come off as that being any less important, but we didn't want to lump the two together and risk not getting anything. So we decided to change the wording on number 5 for the 125,000 to come out of surplus rather than being a raise and appropriate. That did have, for what it's worth, a decent little reduction on the bottom line on the tax impact sheet by switching that to be from surplus. So it wasn't really the point, but a nice added benefit. And then the other big change was, actually, this is not the final version. Yeah, so the final version that you'll see in the drive, we also moved the article about the new capital reserve fund for the renovation in addition at Hill to be number 6. Because these are funded in the order that they're listed, if there's not enough surplus to cover all of them. So those are the major changes, just so that you're caught up. Yes, sir.
You can call me ma'am. I think it's important in the supplement that goes with, as the explainer, the warrant articles, to make sure to use non-binding word choice. Because legally, I think it's a distinction without a difference to say something like, you know, in the warrant article, we want $30,000 to buy towards a truck, versus in the warrant article, we want $30,000. And then in the explainer, we say to buy a truck. I don't think that I don't think that solves the problem that Jerry has rightfully flagged of binding us to buy a truck. And so I think it's important to use words like, you know, something like and I'm being really squishy, but the conceptual intention at this time is to plan to purchase a truck at some time in the future, you know, to just be very thoughtful about writing it in non-binding language. Like, this is why we're doing this, but we're not saying this is absolutely 110%, no matter what we're gonna do.
Right. Yep.
As you pointed out, we're bound by the terms of the trust fund.
Yep, and I think we can run that supplement by Dean as well to make sure that we have the blessing. Any other questions on this? Okay, so yeah, everybody please review those. While we're on the topic again, I'll repeat it one more time at the end of the meeting, but public hearing on both the town and school budgets and warrants is Thursday night here, 7 o'clock in the auditorium. Anything else on 8B, Betty? Anything else from you guys? Okey-doke. So we've got policy. I haven't seen, the social media one from Josh yet, so I think we're not gonna do anything with that tonight. Okay. That would sometimes make me feel bad, but after last year, when the policy thing got up to like 15 at one point, I'm okay. Okay, then we are on to agenda item number 10, which is our second public comment section. So same idea as before, 15 minutes, 3 minutes per person, name and town. If you've got anything you want to contribute, now is the time. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to 11. We've got a quick update on the numbers regarding the mass matrix.
Yes, so nothing has changed on page 1 in terms of the level of community spread. Page 2, rather, I did update that yesterday. So as you know, they change every day, but as of yesterday, Merrimack County was still substantial. Active cases in Pembroke, I did make a notation that this is as reported on the COVID dashboard was 87. The Hill School was 23 as of January 28th. Three Rivers was 39 as of January 27th. And Pembroke Academy was 40 as of January 28th. Your percent of fully vaccinated population in Pembroke is 54.2. Our area district cases by town are Allenstown 62, Chichester 30, and Epsom 58. We have had a fair number of questions throughout the SAU about cases not matching and numbers not matching and confusion. I don't think anybody's come up with a good answer. Part of the issue is the state suggesting that we not take people off the list until after 10 days, but yet they can come back after 5. So trying to separate out who is really off of quarantine versus who is back in school, but maybe still has 5 days, it's extremely confusing. We know we have a lot of cases that are not being reported because there are the home tests. So people are doing what they need to do. They take the test, they isolate or quarantine, then they go about their business. They don't necessarily call them, wait in line to say, I just want you to know I have COVID. So those numbers are not matching up and they are not necessarily the state reported numbers and the school numbers are not matching. All I can tell you is that our school numbers are 100% accurate with what we know on any given day. But beyond that, I'm not sure how much help we can be to the public who are confused because it is very confusing at this point. So we just do our best to update our own numbers. And that's why I made the little notation that came from the COVID dashboard. And that's the only access to data that I have.
Okay. Any questions about the number?
Quick little comment.
Sure.
I was on a conference call the other day with Commissioner Shivanette, and there is supposed to be an update to the dashboard in the next 7 to 10 days because they do know that those case numbers are inaccurate. Because not every provider office, if you can call your doctor with a home test, is going to report that to the state. So they're supposed to be revamping that, so that may hopefully get a little better. You probably already knew that, but
Thank you.
Okay. So do we have non-public since we took care of that other thing? Okay. Sorry.
When we get to that, if you want to circle back, you can, sorry. Yes.
Okay. So 13 appointments, resignations, and retirements. We do have a request.
Yes, you have an informational note that someone is intending to retire. It was not a request for the early retirement benefit, but we do like to get those and to accept them because that does allow us to post the position and fill the position. So the person was kind enough to let us know well in advance so that we can hopefully replace and get our ad in before others start looking. So if you did want to talk about it or had questions, then again, we would move that, go back to non-public and move that until after you come out. So.
Okay. So there's no ask for the benefit. So does anybody see need to discuss in non-public? And is there a motion to accept?
Motion to accept the resignation
Second. It's a retirement. Right?
or retirement.
I don't know if it matters. I just.
Motion to accept the retirement, the well-earned retirement.
Eugene seconded. Okay. I guess there's no discussion in public. All in favor of accepting the retirement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, so that brings us to the end. I do want to point out, I asked Kathy to put a bunch of stuff at the end here, because there's a lot of important things coming up. So again, for the 7th time tonight, public hearing on the town school budgets is Thursday the 3rd at 7 PM in the auditorium. Our next meeting, which is a work session, is February 15th here, 6:30 as usual. The school district meeting is Saturday, 5th of March at 10 AM. Also, I believe in the auditorium, right? The following Tuesday, March 8th, is town and school elections, also at PA. And that runs from 11 in the morning until 7 PM. And then the following Saturday, March 12th, is the town meeting, also in the PA auditorium at 10 AM. So encourage attendance at all of those things. And if nobody's got anything else,
Hey, Andy, I was just gonna say, before we adjourn, I wanted to say thank you, and I would like to suggest that we have a section like this on every agenda. I find it hugely helpful to just list like, the next upcoming stuff.
yeah, I think in general, it will mostly be, our next meeting and AREA/exec board. But this time of year, I won't typically probably include town things, but this is a huge one and happens in one of our buildings, so it made sense. But yeah, it's something that I want to keep doing. But after meeting season, take another peek at it and let me know if it's still helpful or what stuff should be added or whatever. Open to suggestions and changes.
Can I just remind everyone that you do have a non-meeting at the end? So
Yep. You'll do it better than me. Do you want to explain just for people that are in attendance what a non-meeting is?
Sure. So there is a situation where a board enters into a non-meeting, and that is for contract negotiations or items relative to the collective bargaining agreements. It does not qualify under the non-public small letters that we typically cite when we go in. So it's just at the end of the meeting, it adjourns. It's not a public meeting. It's not a posted meeting. It's a conversation about the collective bargaining items that we need to talk about, and it's not posted, or we always announce it because it's more transparent. If the public sees the board sitting and chatting, that you understand that it's purposeful and the reason why.
Thank you. And with that, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? We are adjourned at 7:39 PM. Thanks for coming tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us online.